Welcome to House of Horrors. A place where real stories, dark encounters, and unexplained events come to life. Before starting today's video, tell us in the comments where are you watching from and what time is it there so we know from which state people are watching from. Tonight, we're sharing 6 real creepy experiences truck drivers had in remote Texas rest stops. No urban legends. The rest stop that wasn't on the map, West Texas. I've been driving long haul across Texas for almost 14 years, mostly refrigerated freight on night runs. You learn early on that Texas isn't just big, it's empty in ways maps don't explain. There are stretches out west where the road feels unfinished, like it was poured through land that didn't agree to it. This happened outside of Pecos County, on a run I'd done dozens of times before, same load, same timeline, same highway. That night, something felt different. I left Midland just after sunset. The sky was burning orange behind me, the CB radio quiet. You notice these silences when you drive long enough. About 3 hours in, my eyelids were heavy. I checked my logbook. I still had legal time, but I needed a break. Coffee wasn't going to cut it. That's when I saw the sign, green reflective lettering, standard DOT style. It read, Rest Area, 2 miles. I frowned because I knew this stretch. There wasn't a rest stop there. The closest one was nearly 50 miles east. I figured maybe it was new. Texas adds things without telling anyone. 2 miles later, my headlights caught the exit. There were no lights, no reflectors on the guardrail, just a narrow off-ramp slipping into darkness. I hesitated, then told myself I was overthinking it. I took the exit. The road narrowed immediately. Pavement cracked, tires crunching over loose gravel. My GPS didn't reroute or say anything at all. Then the trees closed in, not tall forest, just scrub mesquite and twisted brush, close enough that branches scraped the trailer. After about a mile, the road opened into a wide dirt lot. A rest stop. But it wasn't like any I'd ever seen. There were no bathrooms, no vending machines, no lighting towers, just an old concrete shelter, 3 picnic tables, and a single trash barrel tipped on its side. 2 trucks were parked there, both idling. That should have been my first red flag. Most drivers shut down at rest stops, fuel costs money. I parked anyway, set the brake, left my engine running. Stepping out, the air felt wrong, too still, no wind, no insects, even the highway noise seemed gone as if the road itself had been swallowed. One of the trucks was an older Freightliner, paint faded, DOT numbers scratched off. The other was newer, clean, running lights on. I didn't see drivers in either cab. I walked toward the shelter and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. There were no signs. No Texas Department of Transportation, no rules posted, no mile markers, nothing identifying it as official. I turned back toward my truck and froze. There was now a 3rd truck parked beside mine, black Peterbilt, engine off, no lights. I know for a fact it wasn't there when I pulled in. I would have heard it. I climbed back into my cab and locked the door. My heart was beating harder now. I checked my phone, no signal, not even emergency bars. I keyed my CB. Anybody parked out here on the rest stop near mile? I stopped because I didn't know the mile marker. The CB crackled and then a voice came through, low and flat, Driver, you shouldn't be stopped here. No handle, no chatter, just that. I swallowed. Which one of you said that? I asked. Silence. Then I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, crunching gravel. I looked out my passenger window and saw a man walking between the trucks. Tall, too thin, wearing a reflective vest that didn't reflect, moving stiffly as if he wasn't used to walking. He stopped near the black Peterbilt, looked up at my cab, and smiled. Except his mouth didn't move. The smile just appeared. I pulled my door handle and locked it. Good. The man raised a hand, not waving, pointing at my trailer. Then he turned and walked behind it. My trailer rocked just slightly, then again harder this time, like someone had leaned against it. I slammed my truck into drive without even releasing the brake properly. The engine roared as I backed out fast, gravel spraying. As I turned toward the exit road, my headlights swept across the shelter. There were now people standing under it, at least 6, all facing my truck, none of them moving or blinking. I hit the gas. The exit road felt impossibly long on the way out. My speedometer climbed but the trees didn't thin. Then my GPS spoke in a calm voice, recalculating, "You are off mapped roadway." My radio burst into static, overlapping voices whispering, not through the speaker but inside the cab. I screamed and floored it. The trees vanished all at once. I shot back onto the highway. Traffic noise returned, wind hit the cab, and the stars reappeared. I didn't stop driving for 4 hours, didn't shut the truck down until sunrise. When I checked my route later, there was no rest stop, no exit, no record of anything between those mile markers. I asked another driver about it weeks later. Older guy, 30 years hauling freight, got quiet, then said, "Yeah. That place shows up sometimes. You did the right thing by leaving." I asked him where it was. He shook his head. "You don't find it twice." The man who never used the bathroom, Texas Panhandle. I had been driving freight across the Texas Panhandle for more than a decade. You get used to long stretches of highway with nothing on either side but flat plains, wind-swept grass, and the occasional silo or abandoned farmhouse. Most rest stops are routine: coffee, bathroom break, quick stretch, and back on the road. But some places, no matter how ordinary they look in the daylight, have a presence you can't explain. That's the one that got me, the one I still can't forget. It was mid-August, late evening, and I had been on the road since dawn. My rig was heavy with produce, and my bladder had been warning me for hours that it was time for a break. I spotted the small Panhandle rest stop off US 287. Nothing fancy, a single gas pump, one concrete picnic table, and a tiny bathroom building with faded white paint. The lot had maybe 3 trucks parked, and one lone pickup with a man leaning against the tailgate. I waved. He waved back without smiling, just a slight nod. I killed the engine, grabbed my bag, and headed for the bathroom. The building smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and something else I couldn't place, a subtle metallic tang, sharp in the back of my throat. I stepped inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering once as if the fixture itself was hesitant to stay on. I chose a stall and did what I needed to do, washing my hands at the lone sink afterward. That's when I heard it, soft scratching, gentle at first, like fingernails tapping the stall walls. I froze, listening. The sound wasn't consistent, but deliberate, as if someone was tapping out a rhythm I couldn't understand. I opened the stall door cautiously, half expecting a prankster. Nothing. Empty. I moved to the sink and glanced around. The bathroom was deserted except for me. The faint scratching had stopped. I stepped outside, feeling a sudden shift in the air. The wind seemed heavier here, warmer, almost cloying. I glanced around the lot. The older man in the pickup was gone, no trace of him. Only my rig and a pair of trucks parked further down. I shook it off, telling myself he must have left while I was inside. I walked to the edge of the lot to stretch my legs. That's when I noticed footprints. Small, bare, pressed deep into the dusty ground near the edge of the lot, leading toward the service road that continued into the flat plains. They weren't human-sized, not exactly. Narrow, elongated in the toes, uneven as if the person had stumbled repeatedly. I froze. No one else was supposed to be here. No cars had left. I called out, "Hello?" My voice carried strangely, swallowed by the emptiness. No reply. A sudden movement in the long grass behind the bathroom made me spin. There, just on the edge of the lights, was a man. Thin, tall, hunched slightly, his clothes faded and ragged, almost like they'd been rotting in the sun for decades. His face was pale, gaunt, and hollow, with dark shadows under his eyes. But the most unsettling thing was how he moved. Not walking, gliding, almost floating across the ground without disturbing it. His bare feet didn't make a sound. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The figure didn't speak, didn't blink, didn't make any expression I could read. He just watched, gliding closer with impossible calm. My instincts screamed at me to run. I turned toward my truck and ran, keys in hand. I jumped into the cab, locked the doors, and tried the ignition. Nothing. The lights flickered once, then the engine roared to life. I hit the gas and tore out of the lot. Headlights illuminated the lot behind me for a fleeting second. The man was gone. No shadow, no movement, nothing but dust and dark shapes. I checked the rearview mirror as I accelerated down the highway. That's when I saw him again, standing in the middle of the road behind me, illuminated by my own tail lights. I slammed on the brakes, but the figure didn't move. Heart racing, I veered into the gravel shoulder, looking for any sign of him. Nothing. The road behind me stretched empty, silent. Weeks later, I asked other truckers about that stretch. They all knew the stories: a man who haunts the Panhandle rest stops, appearing suddenly, silently, disappearing just as quickly. Some say he was a drifter who died decades ago at the rest stop, others claim he never uses bathrooms, watching travelers with empty eyes, appearing only to those alone at night. Every driver has their own version, but the story is the same: he's there, always watching, and you don't want to linger. I've avoided that rest stop ever since. Even in daylight, it gives me a strange unease. At night, when the horizon is flat and endless, I sometimes swear I see a shadow gliding just beyond the lights, a figure waiting, patient and silent, for the next traveler who thinks it's safe to stop. Static on Channel 19, South Texas. I've been driving a big rig through South Texas for close to 15 years. I've seen thunderstorms that made the horizon disappear, heat waves that warped the asphalt, and stretches of road where nothing moves for miles. You learn quickly that the highways out there aren't just about the pavement or the signs, they're about what's unseen, the things lurking in the distance or in the dark, the moments that make you question what you thought was normal. It was early October when it happened. I was hauling refrigerated produce from Corpus Christi to Laredo, a long haul with an expected overnight run. I had just crossed into the more remote sections of the highway, past towns that barely registered on my GPS, stretches of pavement bordered by mesquite and scrub brush, punctuated only by the occasional rest stop or lone gas station. My rig CB radio, Channel 19, standard for freight drivers, had been quiet for hours. Then the static started. At first, it was subtle, a low hiss, almost white noise, barely noticeable over the hum of the engine. I ignored it. Then, as I approached a rest stop in the middle of nowhere, the static intensified, sharp, rhythmic, almost like it was forming words. I twisted the volume knob, hoping to catch a call from another driver. "Driver, you there?" I froze. It was faint, almost a whisper over the static, but distinct. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. "Who's that?" I said aloud, even though I knew no one could hear me. The radio crackled, the voice repeating my name, not my full name, just the one everyone at the depot uses, Mikey. I blinked. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I've been using that call sign for years, but no one on the highway would have known I was on this route tonight. I twisted the dial, tried to move to another channel. Every channel was filled with static, but underneath it, I could still hear my name whispered, distorted, drawn out, as if the signal was coming from somewhere much closer than the airwaves. I pulled into the rest stop to check my rig. Lights on the lot were dim, flickering, throwing long shadows across the cracked asphalt. Only one other vehicle was there, a small sedan parked near the convenience store. No people in sight. I killed the engine and stepped out, the cold night air hitting me. The static in the radio didn't stop, it only got louder, like it was reacting to me, like it was alive. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the convenience store. My rig's doors were locked, but the radio continued its soft, haunting whispers, repeating my name in patterns I couldn't understand. I checked the sedan. Empty. No keys, no bag, nothing. I felt an instinctual urge to leave, to get back on the road and put as many miles as possible between me and this place. But my curiosity, or maybe my disbelief, held me for a few moments longer. Then I heard it, a faint knock on the metal door of the convenience store. Slow, deliberate. My flashlight beam swept the building, but the doors were empty, no one in sight. The knocking repeated, matching the rhythm of the whispers from the CB. I felt my stomach tighten. Something wasn't right. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misheard sound. This was deliberate. I ran back to my cab, fumbled with the keys, and slammed the door shut. The CB radio was screaming now, static, high-pitched, almost painful. Through the noise, I thought I heard more words, fragmented. Behind you, don't, leave, stay. I checked my mirrors. Empty lot. Shadows stretched in unnatural ways, warped by the flickering lights. My pulse hammered. I cranked the engine, put it in gear, and slowly edged toward the exit. The CB went silent for a moment, then one final whisper, barely audible, but unmistakable, Mikey. I floored it. Tires spun on the gravel as I accelerated back onto the highway. Behind me, the lot fell away, dark and quiet. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, but I couldn't. Over the next few nights, every time I approached that section of highway, my CB would pick up faint static. Sometimes I could make out my call sign whispered, sometimes not. I told a few drivers about it. They laughed, said it was just bad radio interference, ghosts in the signal. But one old-timer shook his head and said, Channel 19. South Texas, that frequency has always carried something weird. We call it the static man shows up for those alone at night. Not all of us get a visit. I haven't stopped on that stretch since. Every time I drive past, even in daylight, I feel it, the presence, the unshakable sense that someone, or something, is listening, waiting. And when I reach my cab's CB, there's always a faint hiss in the background. Sometimes I think I can hear it call my name. The closed rest area with parked trucks, I-10, Texas. I've been driving freight across Texas for over 12 years. I know the highways, the back roads, the little rest stops that most drivers avoid. You learn to read the land, the weather, the rhythm of traffic, and sometimes the silence of places that feel off. Nothing prepared me for what I experienced on I-10 one September night. I had been on the road since early morning, hauling refrigerated goods from El Paso to Houston. The miles stretched endlessly, flat desert with low scrub and distant mountains on the horizon. Around midnight, fatigue hit. My eyelids drooped, my shoulders stiffened, and I knew I needed a break. I had passed most of the usual stops earlier, and the next rest area was several miles ahead. I spotted it from the highway signs, a small facility with a concrete lot, picnic tables, and parking spaces. As I exited, something felt off. The rest area was closed. The gates at the entrance were swung partially open, the closed sign hanging crooked. But the lot was full, dozens of trucks, lined up neatly in rows, all dark, all silent. Not a single driver in sight. I slowed my rig and pulled into an empty space near the center. Something about the scene made the hair on my arm stand up. It wasn't just the isolation, it was the unnatural stillness. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. The night was clear, crisp, almost eerily quiet. No crickets, no wind, nothing but the faint hum of distant traffic on the highway. I walked past the parked trucks, shining my light along the asphalt. Everything was perfectly aligned, as if someone had meticulously arranged the vehicles. Some were massive 18-wheelers, others were smaller rigs. But none of them had engines running, no hazard lights blinking, nothing. I moved toward the restroom building. The door was locked, reinforced with a chain. Peering through the windows, I saw empty sinks, gleaming in the flashlight beam, but no sign of life. Just an ordinary rest area, frozen in time. Then I noticed movement. At first, I thought it was my imagination. A shadow flitted between the trucks, quick and subtle, like someone stepping behind a rig. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" My voice carried oddly, swallowed by the darkness. No reply. I walked closer to where I thought I saw the figure, but nothing. Only trucks, still and silent. I climbed back into my rig to radio a friend. Channel 19, usual check-ins. Static. Not the faint hiss I'm used to, but thick, layered, almost like voices trying to break through. I adjusted the squelch, twisted the dial. Over the static, I heard it, faint, deliberate, "Don't leave, stay." I froze. The voice wasn't over the radio. It was around me, echoing across the asphalt, bouncing off the trucks, carried by the empty lot. My heart pounded. I thought about the stories I'd heard from veteran drivers, places where time and reality warp, where you feel watched even when you're alone. But I'd never believed them. Until now. I checked my mirrors. The lot was empty, yet I felt eyes on me. I stepped out again, keeping my flashlight in hand. The shadow returned, gliding silently across the concrete, faster than humanly possible. I swung the light. Nothing. The trucks remained aligned, undisturbed. But I could feel the presence moving around me, circling, patient, unrelenting. Panic set in. I jumped into my cab, locked the doors, and tried the engine. It sputtered once, then roared to life. I shifted into gear, ready to leave. The CB crackled violently, static screaming over the speakers. Through the noise, I caught another whisper, "Why are you leaving?" I hit the gas, tires spinning slightly on the concrete. As I passed the rows of trucks, I glanced in my mirrors. Something impossible made my stomach drop. One of the trucks, a dark green rig, parked near the far corner, now appeared to be facing me, slowly rolling forward, even though I hadn't seen any driver. Its headlights remained off, yet the movement was undeniable. I swerved to avoid it, my heart hammering. The truck stopped. I pressed the accelerator, trying to put as much distance as possible between myself and that lot. As I merged back onto the highway, I checked the rearview mirror one last time. The entire rest area was empty again, trucks frozen in place, gates closed, as if I'd imagined everything. The next morning, at a regular stop, I asked other drivers if they had ever seen that rest area at night. They gave me strange looks. One shook his head slowly. "10. That rest area? Closed for years. Locked up. Nobody parks there, not even during the day." "You're lucky you didn't," he trailed off. I didn't press. Since that night, I avoid that exit entirely. Even during the day, the memory lingers, the perfect rows of silent trucks, the gliding shadow, the whispers that weren't on any radio channel. Some nights, when I'm alone on the highway, my CB will pick up faint static, like it's waiting for me to return. And sometimes, just for a moment, I swear I see a shadow at the edge of the lot, standing, watching, patient, and unmoving, waiting for the next traveler foolish enough to stop. The woman knocking on sleeper cabs, near Laredo, Texas. I've been a long-haul trucker for almost 14 years, covering every major highway across Texas, New Mexico, and the Gulf Coast. Over that time, I've seen storms that make the road disappear, animals darting across the blacktop at impossible speeds, and stretches of highway so remote that the only light comes from your own headlights. But nothing I've ever encountered compares to what happened one night near Laredo. It was late September, and I was hauling a load of refrigerated meat from San Antonio down toward the border. I had been on the road for over 12 hours, and the fatigue was hitting hard. I needed to rest, so I planned to stop at a small truck stop just outside Laredo that I'd used a handful of times before. It wasn't busy, a few rigs parked near the fuel pumps, the diner open 24/7. I pulled into my usual spot, parked my cab, and started shutting things down. I was halfway through securing my sleeper cab when I noticed something strange. At the far end of the lot, near the edge of the property where the asphalt gave way to gravel and scrub, a woman appeared. At first, I thought she was a trucker or someone walking to the diner, but something about her movement was off, slow, deliberate, almost gliding across the ground. She was wearing a long dress, pale and flowing, despite the warm September night. Her hair hung wet and dark, and she moved without urgency, without looking at anything in particular. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was a hitchhiker or someone lost. But then she started walking directly toward the row of sleeper cabs, moving from truck to truck, lightly tapping on the doors. Just a gentle knock, nothing violent, but deliberate. I watched from my cab, trying to rationalize it. Who just walks through a truck stop at night, knocking on locked doors of sleeping drivers? Curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward her, calling out, "Ma'am? Can I help you?" She didn't respond. She didn't even glance in my direction. She continued her quiet knocking, moving from cab to cab with the same eerie calm. My stomach tightened. Every instinct I have as a driver screamed at me to get back inside my rig and lock the doors. But I couldn't look away. When she reached the truck next to mine, she paused. Just stood there, hand raised, fingers brushing the metal of the door. Then slowly, deliberately, she turned toward me. Her eyes were hollow, blackened, like deep shadows under the pale moonlight. And she smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a smile of someone greeting another person. But a smile that felt wrong, cold, deliberate, and knowing. I froze. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like lead. She lifted her hand, just slightly, and knocked again on my door. The sound was soft, almost polite, yet it echoed through the empty lot like it carried weight. My mind raced. No driver is awake this late. No one else was in sight. And yet she knew I was here. She had found me. I stumbled back, fumbling for the keys to my cab. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and climbed inside. I slammed it shut, locked it, and started the engine. As I revved the rig, she didn't move away. She just stood there, staring at me through the windshield, unblinking, pale figure in the shadows. I tried the CB, calling for anyone nearby, channel 19, static, anything. Nothing but hiss and the faint echo of her knocking, distorted and faint, coming through the radio. I shifted into gear, slowly backing out of the space. As I turned onto the main lot road, I glanced in my mirrors, and she was gone. No figure, no shadow, nothing. Just the empty asphalt, faintly lit by the overhead lights. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was a hallucination, fatigue playing tricks on me. But the memory of her hollow eyes, the pale dress, and the deliberate knocking stayed with me. I drove a few miles down the highway and stopped at a 24-hour diner to eat and collect myself. I asked the other drivers there if they had ever seen someone like that. A few shook their heads, others glanced at me nervously, muttering about the lady on the cabs, an old story passed down by drivers on the South Texas routes. Apparently, she had been spotted many times over the years, always near small truck stops or rest areas at night, always moving silently from rig to rig, never speaking, never taking anything, always watching. No one knows who she is or why she does it. Some speculate she's the spirit of a trucker lost on these roads decades ago. Others think she's something older, older than the highways themselves. Since that night, I avoid stopping at small rest areas near Laredo after dark. Even during the day, when the lot is crowded and bright, I feel her presence in the shadows. And when I park for a break, I sometimes swear I hear a soft knock on the sleeper cab, so subtle it could be the wind, or her. The lights behind the fuel pumps, Big Bend region, Texas. I've been driving trucks through Texas for nearly 15 years, and I've learned to respect the solitude of the remote highways. The Big Bend region is particularly unforgiving, long stretches of asphalt cutting through desert, mountains rising in the distance, and few places to stop safely at night. I thought I knew the area well, until one night changed the way I view those quiet, isolated stops forever. It was late October, and I was hauling a refrigerated load from Midland to El Paso. I had been driving for nearly 12 hours straight, and the exhaustion was creeping in. I scanned the horizon for a fuel stop and saw one just off the highway, a small, outdated station with a few pumps, a single convenience store, and a dark lot. Most drivers passed it, but I needed fuel and a break. As I pulled into the lot, I noticed something unusual. The fuel pumps were all dark except for a single set at the far end of the lot, where faint, flickering lights glowed. It wasn't unusual for an old station to have faulty lights, but there was something about the pattern, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The rest of the lot was empty, not a single other vehicle. I parked my rig and killed the engine, listening to the silence. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out, my boots crunching against the gravel. The air was cold and still, the desert quiet surrounding me like a blanket. As I walked toward the illuminated pumps, I noticed shadows stretching unnaturally across the lot. They weren't cast by my flashlight or the flickering lights, they seemed to move independently, stretching and twisting against the asphalt. When I reached the pumps, I saw that the flickering light wasn't coming from the bulb itself. It was coming from somewhere behind the station, beyond the convenience store, where the maintenance area and storage units were located. I hesitated, my gut tightening. I had been in remote locations countless times, but something about this light, harsh, white, pulsing, set my nerves on edge. I considered leaving, but I needed fuel. I tried to start the pump, and it sparked once, then died. I tapped the screen, cursed, and reached for the next pump. The same thing happened. The flickering behind the building seemed to grow brighter, almost beckoning, like it wanted me to come closer. Against my better judgment, I decided to investigate. I walked around the store, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The flickering light now seemed closer, emanating from the rear of the fuel pumps, where no one should be. There was no maintenance crew, no security, nothing. Just the strange, pulsing glow. As I approached, I felt a presence. A cold, sharp sensation crawling up my spine. My flashlight flickered in response, briefly plunging me into darkness. And then I heard it, faint, metallic footsteps behind me, echoing against the concrete. I froze. My eyes darted to the shadows. Nothing. Just the desolate lot. I spun around, flashlight sweeping across the gravel, and saw movement, a shape, crouched low, moving just beyond the edge of the light. I couldn't make it out clearly, but it was human-sized, limbs bending in ways that didn't seem natural. My heart raced. I backed away slowly, trying to keep my flashlight on the shape. Suddenly, the lights behind the pumps went out completely. Total darkness. The humming of the fluorescent bulbs ceased, leaving nothing but silence. I stumbled backward, nearly falling over a parking block. When I looked back, the lights flickered on again, but the shape was gone. The lot was empty. No shadow, no figure, nothing. I rushed back to my truck, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I tried the CB, calling for anyone on the channel, channel 19. Static. Thick, white noise, louder than usual, almost like it was reacting to my voice. I tried again. The static continued, but faint words cut through. Stay, don't leave, you'll regret it. I swallowed hard, telling myself it was interference or fatigue, but I couldn't shake the voice. I started the engine, slowly pulling out of the lot. As I merged onto the highway, I glanced back in my mirrors. The lights behind the pumps pulsed one last time, brighter than ever, then went out completely. I didn't stop again until I reached Fort Stockton hours later. I asked other drivers about that station. Most avoided it entirely at night. One old-timer gave me a grim look, saying, "That place isn't a stop. It's a marker. Drivers see things there, lights, shapes, voices. Nobody knows why, but it's best to keep moving." Since that night, I never fuel there after dark. Even passing it during daylight, I feel uneasy, as if the place remembers me. Sometimes, when I drive alone through the Big Bend region late at night, I swear I can see faint lights flickering behind abandoned pumps along the highway. And I know that somewhere, just beyond the reach of the headlights, Something is waiting, watching, and remembering every driver who dares to stop. So guys, that's it for today's story. If this video gave you chills, make sure to subscribe to House of Horrors. New horror stories every day. And yeah, sleep safe tonight.